Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. If so, my name is Amy and this video is typically a little bit different to my usual content. I'm currently pregnant with baby number 2 and so I love documenting this journey. My first pregnancy I did weekly updates and time's going too quickly this time around. The pregnancy you have when you already have a child is so different from your first, and so I'm definitely trying to do at least end of trimester updates so that I can kind of catch you up on what's happened, what we're looking at, things that I've considered, because if you're pregnant, or you know, it's such, in times, a bit of a lonely process, but at times it's so universal because so many people have done it. So what I wanted to do is not only document for my sake the journey, because it's going to be over so quickly because this time has gone so incredibly fast, but anyone that's kind of curious or also going through the journey and wants to know from my perspective how things have been going, then hopefully this video is for you. As I've said before, if kind of pregnancy or talking about being pregnant triggers you, I completely understand. This video may not be for you. I will be back with my usual hair care content on my next video and kind of thereafter. These updates are very kind of sporadic, just based on the end of a trimester, and so like I said, I won't be offended if this video isn't for you. But for those that are curious, let's dive straight into it because there's lots to talk about. I'm probably gonna get out of breath very quickly, so yeah, let's dive into it. So I've made tons of notes on my phone, so if I'm constantly looking down, I think baby brain is probably one of the first symptoms to say, is that I'm so forgetful already. But that said, I don't think it ever came back from my first. Anyway, the second trimester, isn't it the best trimester? Because everyone knows, because you've had that first scan, if you've decided to tell people based on that, everyone knows. It's not a secret, which I love. I love that feeling of being able to just like breathe again, because when you have this like secret you're keeping, I hate that. I really hate not being transparent for people, but obviously in some instances it's not appropriate to tell everyone. And so yeah, I've just really enjoyed being able to have that secret out, start wearing maternity outfits. I'll show you my bump shortly because my god have I popped. In fact, I'm massive at this point, and so it's really nice to be able to start showing, and you know, you've still got your energy. Everything that's horrible about the first trimester has finished, and in the third trimester, obviously the beginning bit is okay and it gets progressively worse and worse until you give birth, doesn't it? Like, I remember my first pregnancy, I was like, no, I've got so much energy, this is fine, like pregnancy's not too bad. And in the last couple of weeks I was like, oh my god, this is horrible, I've got no energy, I don't do anything. So it's a very similar situation where I've just really enjoyed this time where you're visible, you can talk about it. It's been a really nice experience. When I talked about my last update, obviously my first trimester was a little bit rougher this time around. I had really bad morning sickness, but almost to the day of kind of turning into my second trimester. Does that even make sense? That day, almost to the day, my morning sickness stopped. And it's really funny because one of my closest friends who had a boy recently had the same experience, and so it was kind of reassuring to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. My morning sickness with my first wasn't quite the same, and so it made that less enjoyable, of course, but really thankfully this kind of last 12 weeks or however long it is, it's slightly more, isn't it, it's been a lot more enjoyable. I felt myself. I've just started to waddle a little bit more, get bigger, and be noticeably really pregnant. And so yeah, it's nice that that morning sickness element has gone, because that wasn't enjoyable in the slightest. I may have touched on this in my first trimester update, but this time around I'm really low on iron again. It wasn't a surprise to me because it was the same when I was pregnant with Heidi, my eldest. I was put on iron tablets this time around relatively quickly into my pregnancy because they identified the same trend. However, what I wanted to talk about is the fact that basically the tablets that they give you wreak havoc on your bowels. Like, I did not go to the toilet for like a week and a half, and that's not normal behavior. So I said to my midwife about it, and she was like, oh, you need to call your GP and like let them know. So I did that. And basically I was then changed from the iron supplements to like a liquid supplement. I prefer taking the like iron tablets because it's an easier process, like you just down it with water, fine, but obviously internally it didn't agree with me. I've moved to this liquid, and let me tell you, this liquid tastes like liquid sick, like it's horrible. I've come up with all these different hacks to be able to like drink it or eat it or whatever, like it's a vile taste. However, internally it's much better on my body. It's just a little bit softer while still being super rich in iron. It has a very metally taste, but they've almost tried to cover it up, so it's just like artificial art. It's disgusting, it's horrible, honestly. So unless your body really hates the tablets, I would recommend that over taking like the medicine version, because that process every morning makes me just retch so much. But it's one of those equally that it's so high in iron. I was reading the leaflet, am I the only person that actually reads leaflets still? And it was saying that basically don't take two, like if you miss a day, don't take two the next day because it's so high in iron that you could get metal poisoning from it. So it's like, okay, great, I'm that deficient. But I kind of just wanted to like kind of share that with you. What I do to down it, if you are in this situation, very niche, but maybe you are, is I have basically a sip of juice, then kind of put the medicine in my mouth and swallow it all together, because at least it's kind of softening the taste a little bit. But like I said, it's vile, it's the worst thing ever. And if anything, I can't wait for this baby to come out so I never have to take it again. But the taste is not enough to stop me wanting to go back on the tablets, because that pain was a very different pain. So yeah, you kind of, it's all about compromise, isn't it? Pregnancy is not this particularly glamorous process. One of the things that I wanted to talk about, so it's kind of two things, is that we did find out the gender of the baby, and I've just kept it a little bit more to ourselves this time. When we had Heidi, I was very like vocal about the fact we were having a girl, and I was so excited. I think when it's your first, it's just that anticipation of like, what's your family going to look like? Whereas this time, I really wouldn't have minded either way. I definitely had a preference, but I think that's just based on like my vision of what I would maybe hope things would look like. But either way, I really won't mind, because if I had a girl, it's a sister for my daughter, and kind of two girls, we only want to have two children, and so that would be great. Equally, if we had a boy, we'd have like a boy and a girl, and it's like that kind of, you've got one of each, and you know, ultimately for me, it wouldn't have mattered what they were. I was too impatient to not find out. So I took everything up to that point of having the scan. I was like, is this a guess? Is this like an indication? And one of the things is that my friend who actually lives in America was saying that if you have a midwife appointment and baby's heartbeat is over 140, that could indicate a girl. Obviously my morning sickness, my friend that had a boy said that that could be more telling to a boy. My one friend was saying that this could be more telling to a girl. So there was no real signs of like, oh, I'm sure it's kind of either this or that. So baby's heartbeat was over 140 on one of my midwife appointments. But what's so special about my midwife appointments is that I've been bringing our eldest with us, because I really want her to like be able to bond with the baby and anticipate it more so than just like turning up with a baby. Like, she's old enough, because she's 4 and she'll be 5 in December. She gets it better than obviously a younger child would. But I wanted to bring her to midwife appointments because they obviously hear the heartbeat and it's just really special. So she really enjoyed that. Obviously you can't have them present at the NHS scans, and so we really wanted to have that moment of like seeing if she could connect with them in that way as well and anticipate it a bit more. And she loved it. First of all, she was like, it sounds like a train or it sounds like a horse, because it's so fast, isn't it? And yeah, so that was really special. And I just kind of wanted to say as well that if you have older children and you want them to almost anticipate like a baby entering their life, from what obviously baby hasn't come yet, but like those appointments have really helped her talk positively about this anticipation and the fact that like baby's got a really fast heart, and like she's talking about it herself independently, not only to us but to family members and at nursery. And so that was just a really great thing for them to hopefully start that bonding process before they're physically here. Obviously, when we had the gender scan, to go back to that slightly, up until that point, I was more nervous than I was excited about this baby, just because you know so much, don't you? Like the second time around, you know the bad just as much as the good, whereas the first time you have that like sweet naivety of it's gonna be a mini me, or like all you envision are the good bits, whereas actually like you understand what sleep deprivation does to you, you understand that you're lack of patience at times, and I was really nervous going into having a second baby, and I've almost put it off slightly because I've known that I've had this like embedded fear of adding more to like our plate in situations where we feel quite overwhelmed. But when we had the gender scan, that melted away completely, almost like in that moment, because the reality of them being who they are just suddenly clicked in my head. And almost ever since then, any nervousness I've had, I have times where like in the moment with our eldest, I'm like trying to get her to do something and I'm thinking, God, imagine if I also had a baby in this situation or in this dynamic. But actually like that's all just like, you're just fretting about things that aren't there in that moment. Of course you're gonna have bad days, but of course you're gonna have good days. And so yeah, I kind of wanted to touch on that as a bit of a milestone, because from then on I've been just super excited about this whole process. I can't wait for them to be here, and yeah, it's just made me super excited, and it's just a really big turning point. I think if you are going into having a second and you're also very nervous, obviously some people decide not to find out the gender, but if you do and you are similar in any respect to me, you might have that same experience of, okay, I actually don't need to worry, or like this is what my family is now going to look like. And yeah, from then on I've just been super excited about it. So that's been really nice, because my head could be a bit of a dangerous place sometimes, where I just almost doubted my ability to have 2 children myself almost. But actually I haven't thought of that since before we've had the scan, because the reality of who they are is more of an overwhelming feeling, as opposed to like this unknown and uncertainty, and just with that come a bit of anxiety. What I also wanted to talk about, this is so mismatched, I'm sorry, this isn't actually in particular orders, but in relation to my iron levels, despite this intervention of both the tablets and the medication, a couple of weeks ago now, my face came up with these bruises and it looked like black eyes. What I'll do is I'll upload some beautiful photos on the screen so that you can actually see what it looked like, because it looked like I had been punched in the face, and no makeup would really cover it that well. I was on like work calls, I work in marketing, and so you're constantly communicating with clients, and I was so aware that even through makeup it looked like I had these like battered bruises under my eyes, and it looked like I was trying to cover it with makeup. And I know that that was because of my iron, because they've taken bloods and concluded that my iron kind of dipped a little bit, and so we've got it back up, and it hasn't happened since, obviously touch wood. But at the time it felt like I was walking around with 2 black eyes, and I didn't want people to see that I was pregnant and people coming up with assumptions on why I may or may not have black eyes, which was a bit of a horrible situation obviously. And all I wanted to do was it to go, because it looked quite intrusive on my face. But yeah, kind of wanted to tell you that, because I never knew that that was a side effect of like low iron, because it happened and I was like, what is going on? Called my midwife, obviously concerned, because I was like, I've got like bruises on my face, it looks like black eyes, I don't know where it's come from or why, because I've not had it ever before. And she recommended I call my GP again and explained it. Ironically, they did nothing to help in that moment. All they did was prescribe some like steroid-based cream, and so that did help elevate it, but not any quicker than just the passing of time. So I don't know. I mean, it's good to have that just in case it happens again, I suppose, and I can use it a little bit quicker. But it was a really bizarre situation, because it looked really bad, and like I FaceTimed my mum one night and she was like, what's happened? Like concerned. And I would never want anyone to think anything that's not the case, if you know what I mean. So yeah, having like bruised under eyes was a horrible situation. So I'm pleased to be the other side of that, of course. Like I said, it hasn't happened again, but if you ever notice it on you, it might be a sign of low iron. So a couple of appointments that are coming up, or that I've had or didn't happen in this case. So because this time around I'm pretty certain that I want another C-section. Some people think that's really strange. I've had that experience already, and so in my head I think that's just what I'm gonna go for. But I was meant to be, or I was at least put on this like clinic for kind of VBAC. And so I said to my midwife, like they put it, like our NHS system, we don't have the green notes anymore, it's all on an app. And so this appointment turned up and it said like, clinic or something, and I was like, oh, I asked her what it was regarding. She said it was a VBAC clinic so that I could understand why I should perhaps consider naturally giving birth, and it's your own preference. So, you know, that was still optional, but I was like, look, knowledge is power. It might be that I go into natural labour anyway. It's good to know these different things. So I rang her up and said that this appointment has turned up on my app, but it doesn't say a location. Could you confirm? She's like, yeah, I'll get back to you on it. Didn't hear from her, so I went to my next appointment and kind of said to her, because that was like the week before this appointment was supposed to be. So I said to her, like, hey, did you find out like where it's supposed to be? I still don't know, I didn't hear back. And she's like, no, like my manager runs it, so let me like touch base with her, I'll get back to you. So okay. And then that Friday, this appointment was supposed to be on the Monday, so I wanted to call them Friday because otherwise, like Monday morning, like my work day on a Monday is really busy, so if I had to take time out to go to a clinic, my Monday would be even busier, right? So I wanted to ring her on the Friday, and I just rang her. I was like, hey, I still haven't heard back. Like ultimately, if I don't know where I'm going, I'm not going to be able to go. I don't know where it is. Like there was 2 different places it could have been that's neither local to me necessarily, so it'd be like going out of my way to attend it, and whichever one I went to, it would be the wrong one. Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't know. So I just said to her, look, I really need to know, otherwise I won't be able to go, because otherwise I don't know where I'm going. She's like, no, completely get it, I'll ring you back by the end of the day. So I was like, okay, cool, like no worries, really appreciate that. Obviously just never got a call, so I didn't go because I didn't know where it was. What I do have is a consultant appointment on the 31st of May along with another growth scan, and so that's when we're actually going to be talking about my birth specifically, because I'm under consultant care. So actually he's probably the best person to advise like if my decision is right for me based on like these various kind of medical things that go on in the background. So I feel comfortable enough to like speak to him and not too worried that I missed that. It was so annoying because it was just such like poor communication, which was like disappointing. And then in a similar vein, I got a bit of a random letter that was like, you need to make an appointment for a blood test at your GP. It was quite like official sounding, and I was like, what's this regarding? Like I had no context to it whatsoever, and it was sent these labels as well, which I had to take to the blood appointment. So I rang the doctors. I was like, hey, like I don't know if you guys have any further context to this, but I've received this letter. It's advised I make a blood like appointment for a blood test. I'm hoping that, you know, you guys will have more information on what that's regarding, but I just want to book it in because it had to be on a specific day. And they were like, yeah, no worries, we'll book that in for you. Booked in, turn up, they've got no idea what it's about either. Turned out it should have been for a gestational diabetes test. Basically my first baby was over £9, and so the reason I've like hit that tick mark of potentially being at risk at it because she was quite a big baby. And so I turned up and she was like, do you have the glucose drink? And I was like, no. She's like, have you fasted? I was like, no, I wasn't told to. Like there was no context whatsoever that this was what this was regarding. So I had to just rebook it, which was so frustrating because when you've like turned up and it's again another lack of communication. Like the NHS is stressed at the best of times. Like they don't need me wasting their time on an appointment that could have been prevented or that could have gone to someone else that may have needed it. But equally, if I'd have had what I needed to be able to facilitate that appointment, then I wouldn't be wasting their time with like double booking times. So yeah, again, that was just like super frustrating. And I think generally, unfortunately for me, I've had a very similar experience. The first time I was pregnant, the midwives weren't particularly communicative. And so it's just been the case this time again, which I know the NHS are under so much pressure, and it's more about their lack of resource as a team more than anything. But you know, when you're just in that situation, you're like, this is just such a waste of time. Like, it just wasn't great. So I've got that again next week at the time of filming. I'm a bit nervous about it because I think when you hear like the test of gestational diabetes, it worries me a little bit because obviously you don't want to have something like that, but I don't know what to expect. Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? But anyway, that's coming up, and that is now when I'm 28 weeks as well. So it's like into the 3rd trimester. But yeah, we'll see how that goes because I've got no idea. I didn't have the test when I was pregnant the first time. And then also next week I have another midwife appointment next Thursday. I'm sure she's going to ask me about this clinic and how it went, and I'm going to have to just be like, unfortunately I didn't hear back from you. Like I did request kind of the info like 3 times. there we go. And as I've mentioned already, I've got the growth scan on the 31st of May and also a consultant appointment where we're talking more about birth choices specifically. So I'm looking forward to that conversation because I think that's also going to determine possible timeframes. Growth scan obviously determines the size of the baby, where they are on the percentile chart. I just have this gut feeling they're going to be earlier this time because the consultant has seemed to suggest that they don't want this baby getting as big as Heidi got, and so I just have this feeling they're going to be early, but maybe that's an optimist feeling, I don't know. But yeah, we will see how that goes. But like I said, at this present moment I'm anticipating wanting a C-section. That hasn't changed since I got pregnant, and I don't imagine it's going to change in the next trimester either. But that conversation for me is going to be pivotal, because if he suggests that that's more of a dangerous option because XYZ, I should consider this. I really want to take his opinion on board, so I'm going in there completely open book. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. And I kind of just wanted to talk specifically about two last things. So one of them, I got a few questions asking if I've had any weird cravings this pregnancy. No, like the only thing I've been craving so much, because it's so refreshing, a store kind of local to us has started selling Tango Ice Blast from a machine, and you bet I go there at every opportunity. They were saying that I'm one of the oldest people that buys them, like not for children, because all like the kids are like going in and buying them, and I'm there like, hi, like, yeah, I'm the pregnant one, and I'm going in and getting these ice blasts, and they just laugh every time, but they know who I am because I go in there that regularly. And yeah, really love those. They're super refreshing but not particularly weird. You know, I'm not doing these like weird TikTok pickle kits or anything like that. And I think as well, what's also weird is the fact I'm in this third trimester. It's gone so quickly. I'm on like the home run to it. This is the beginning of the end, isn't it? You're in that last stage, which feels really weird to even say that and admit that now. Even at the time of filming, I know I've got about 9 or 10 weeks left at work. There's so much to sort out before I go off, and so for me it's a weird situation. Like, I really love working. It's something that I really enjoy. I've found a career that I love, and so stepping away from that, whilst obviously it's for your family, like it's such a huge part of who you are. So it just feels really weird and a bit surreal to be like planning for when I'm not there. I don't know, I'm just one of those weird people, I guess. But that's gonna be a really weird adjustment to me personally, because it's so much of your time, isn't it, being at work. I went back full time quite quickly with my first. Anticipate doing the same with my second as well. But yeah, it's just weird to be on this home stretch where you're talking more specifically about like, that's the end date of working, or, you know, these are the provisions for when I go into labour, and it's sorting out those logistics, which makes me realise that these last couple of weeks are going to go so quickly. It's crazy. I'm petrified about how quickly time goes this time. I think as well because like it's probably going to be my last pregnancy. Never say never, but in terms of how we envision our family, I think that 2 is where we want to keep it. It's quite emotional thinking that I'm never going to be pregnant again, or possibly not be pregnant again, and equally knowing that our circumstances are going to change so dramatically. Our daughter's not going to be our only child, our dynamic just changes and all of those things. So yeah, it's really weird. But let me show you my bump, because we are popping at the moment, and this dress in particular, this is a bodycon dress, which I would never wear unless I was pregnant, because the mum tum is real. However, it accentuates bump very heavily, so let me show you. Here I am, front on. Who's pregnant? I don't know. Boom, I am. Look how big this bump is already. Like, at this present moment, I'm 28 weeks pregnant, and we are huge. But yeah, that is everything to update you on from a second trimester point of view. Let's do the third, and let's welcome this baby super soon. It honestly feels like it's coming far too quick. If you have any questions or anything like that, leave them in the comments below. Are you expecting as well? I'd love to hear from you. But yeah, let me know any questions, queries, yeah, anything like that, or any videos you'd like to see about pregnancy, because I don't plan to do too many, but if there's anything specifically you'd like to see, also let me know, because I love getting your insight on things that you would like to see, especially as I don't have too long left. And so if you want to see anything, we better get it in the schedule, do you know what I mean? But yeah, that is what I'm looking like. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys super soon. Bye.